We're back with the League of the Genuine Conversations with me, your host, Fred Mwema. As always, every Friday we have a conversation, a discussion with a different guest to understand the problem of counterfeits, which is rampant on the market. As always, it's a pleasure to have you. And today we have a special guest from the Office of the Directorate of Public Prosecutions. Mr. Baine, you are welcome.
Thank you.
Please tell us your full names and what it is you do at the DPP or DPP.
Thank you. I am Baine Stanley Moses. I am a Chief State Attorney at the Anti-Corruption Department of the Office of the DPP. We sit in Kololo at the Anti-Corruption Court. I am a prosecutor, and that is my work.
You're a prosecutor. You get the bad guys and you lock them up. Yes. My first job as a lawyer was actually as a prosecutor for a very short time. Oh. And then I ran out to the private practice. Oh. But it is quite an important job that you do that unfortunately sometimes pits you with or against the public. People love to hate you and love to love you at the same time. How do you find this job in that context? How do you balance?
Yes, the work of a prosecutor is not an easy one because we are public servants. And the public is diverse. Satisfying it is not easy. But as a public prosecutor, you have to follow some regulations. You have to follow the code of conduct of prosecutors. And professionalism helps you to cope with any criticism that may come with the job. And try to do your best so that the public can
appreciate.
That,
of course, as good job. Consumers of justice, there is a lot of misunderstanding about the administration of justice. For we lawyers, it might be easier to understand. But there are some key things which disturb ordinary people. For example, some people ask me, why is it that if I report a criminal case, it is reported as Uganda versus so-and-so. But if I report a civil case, it is my name against the other party. Can you just help to demystify that?
Yes, of course, this has a very deep historical background. But historically and up to today, criminal cases are crimes against the public. And the public has to be represented. So Uganda as a nation is the entity in which the public fits.
Otherwise, the public trustee.
It's the trustee of the public. We are that's why we are called public prosecutors, because we do it on behalf of the public. If there's a thief in a community, that thief is not a private thief. Will not only steal from you, but from everyone else. Is a threat to everyone. And it's the duty of the government to ensure that they put that person out of action. Because if you are the one taking on the person, they can easily accuse you of malicious prosecution.
Especially if the result is to lock up somebody in a jail.
Especially if a person is acquitted, they will just say that, now it was between you and me, I have won, therefore you should pay the price.
Talking about thieves, there is a certain kind of thief we deal with on this platform. And that thief is called a counterfeiter. Yes. They are thieves because they steal somebody's innovation, somebody's creation, and take it for their own. At the Anti-Corruption Court, do you handle these kind of thieves?
Unfortunately, at the Anti-Corruption Court, we deal with a specific kind of thievery, thuggery, if I can call it that. But this is corruption, which is provided for under the Anti-Corruption Act 2009. And therefore, counterfeits may not fall into that category. And therefore, we are not dealing with counterfeits, so to speak.
But counterfeiting is a big public concern. Corruption is a big public concern. Isn't counterfeiting also a corrupt act?
Generally speaking, corruption...
And how do you define corruption?
Yeah, corruption, if you define corruption in that perspective, corruption is something that is immoral, something that is wrong. Like, that's the generic interpretation of corruption. However, the corruption which we deal with at the Anti-Corruption Court is the one defined under the Act. And that one is for public resources and
stealing,
resources,
stealing public resources.
And from corporations.
Abuse of office.
Yes.
Negligence of duty.
And also money laundering, which is...
So that is the corruption.
The corruption that we are dealing with specifically.
So why don't we call it corruption, for example, if somebody got a contract to build a road, for example, yes. And got the public resources and put fake culverts, fake bitumen, and the road wastes away, and there's a loss of public resources. That act, if it is built on a supply of a fake procurement, why can't that person come to your court and you charge him?
Yeah, in that case, the one who will be charged is the contractor who has actually used fake materials to fulfill the obligation under the contract. And it will actually be his responsibility to answer, but not the one who supplied to him the fake materials, because the government will have no relationship with that person.
You see, Mr. Bainer, we just come out of a training we had, which was sponsored by USAID Feed the Future, on empowering the capacity of government agencies to fight counterfeits. So we had a training of your colleagues, some prosecutors and magistrates. Yes. One of the things that was raised there in the room was that cases against counterfeiters are not receiving the kind of robust attention. You're not having convictions, suspects are being released and so on. Could it be because of this technical definition of corruption or of the offenses? From your experience?
No, I wouldn't say so. I think that was maybe a minority view. Otherwise, to my recollection, we are having a very good record against counterfeits in this country. They are being tried under the Utilities Court in Uganda Road. And we have a very good conviction rate ranging between 60 and 80%. These counterfeits are being handled under another legal regime of trademarks, the trademarks law, patents law, and also the Copyright and Neighboring Rights Act. So it's being enforced very well with very many stakeholders. We have the Ugandan Registration Services Bureau. We have the Uganda Police. We have the Office of the DPP, of course. We have the judiciary. We also have NDA in some cases and the Uganda National Bureau of Standards. So basically, I believe that counterfeits are being legitimately and also
but maybe you need to do more, because one of the complaints at the conference was that a lot of the offenses against counterfeiting provide for an option of payment of a fine or issuance of a custodial sentence, imprisonment. And so the people were talking generally, and they were saying that why is the prosecution asking for just a fine? You've got somebody with a truck of counterfeit herbicide or curry powder, whatever it is, worth 50 million. And in the law, the fine is 2 million or imprisonment of 2 years. And so they were pushing towards the prosecution to say, prosecution, you're not doing enough to get to lock away these counterfeiters, to withdraw them from the public. This, how do you play this issue of fine and custodial sentence and imprisonment? When do you press the trigger for a fine, and when do you say somebody should enter jail?
Maybe to make this straight, it is the duty of the judicial officer to sentence. Now, the duty of the prosecutor is to relay the facts and the law. And the law is what it is. We are not parliament. Parliament is the one that makes the laws that we enforce. And we enforce the laws the way they are. Now, when it comes to the general practice in sentencing, is that when you have a first offender, courts will tend to be lenient to them so that they can give them a chance to reform. And you are unlikely to get a very stringent or punitive sentence at the first
for the
time
first
of
time. But
and I think that's where the
issue is. But okay, the argument is that for somebody who is counterfeiting a mass good which goes on the market, whether it's milk or food or medicine, and it will harm people, the argument is that, and we have seen the prosecution many times, like on a bail application, they will go and oppose the bail application and say, lock up this guy, he will interfere with the investigations. Why don't we have the same energy against a counterfeiter who, first of all, is a repeat offender? There are many repeat offenders. They go pay the fine and come back, go pay the fine and come back. So don't you think that maybe we should have more of the custodial than the fine? Because the fine is easier to pay. He sells the fake products and pays.
No, what I would say is that we always insist that the fake products are destroyed because they have no place in our market. But again, when it comes to lenient sentences, it's the discretion of court, and where the law provides for such a sentence and the public feel that
but
it is
can
lenient.
You persuade the court? It's your duty
we try our best, but I think it would be better if we have like a law reform so that we already have a very harsh regime that will punish and deter offenders in this.
So because we have increased counterfeits on the market, do you think the problem is that the law is not stringent enough, or the problem is that the law is not being enforced enough? Where do you think the problem is?
You talked about some issue which is important. Repeated offenders. Sometimes repeated offenders may actually go under the radar because we don't have very many good records for people who have been convicted before. But we try our best to dig down in the records to see whether we can find a prior criminal record so that such people can get very strict and harsh sentences.
The belief is that when it comes to offenses like terrorism, offenses like rape, and maybe even some political offenses, it's very stringent. But when you come to offenses considered minor, by the way, is counterfeiting a minor offense?
It has far-reaching implications. I wouldn't say it's a minor offense.
You wouldn't say it's minor?
It wouldn't be.
Because with the increased cases of cancer and all these things, it looks to be quite a big thing. Chief Prosecutor, Anti-Corruption Court, we need to take a break and continue our conversation on understanding the handling prosecution of counterfeit cases so that the members of the public can appreciate better. We're back with the second segment of the League of the Genuine Conversations. We are here with the Chief Prosecutor of the Anti-Corruption Court here in Kololo, Mr. Stanley Baine. Mr. Baine, we were having a back and forth on why counterfeiters, why these culprits get fines instead of sentences. My question is, if a sentence is in the form of a fine, can't the office of the DPP appeal against that fine? A fine
Unfortunately,
of 2 million, can't you appeal and say, no, for us, this guy should be locked up?
unfortunately, that one is outside our scope because the law does not allow us to appeal against lenient sentences. We can only appeal against an unlawful sentence.
If there is a public outcry, like I'm now telling you here, we receive a lot of outcry, people are disgusted, everything is fake, from Colgate to the tomatoes to the, everything is fake. There is an outcry. I'm telling you as chief prosecutor, you do nothing about that.
Senior counsel, you are a lawyer.
You're doing it for the public because for them,
Yeah,
they don't understand. Me, I may know.
Appeals are a creature of statute. So we cannot appeal where we don't have a right of appeal. So if the sentence is considered to be lenient, either by the public or the prosecutor, that is not.
Do you have, as a commercial lawyer, we have what we call bar to bench engagements, like the commercial court users. We meet the lawyers, the judges, the users, and talk about the issues. Do you have at the anti-corruption court this kind of engagement with the bench, meaning the judiciary side and the users, to talk about the problems and say, look, we have this issue. Can we get some feedback and address it?
Yeah, certainly we have these engagements. They are very useful. We used to call them the chain-linked meetings. All stakeholders would come. They are now called DCCs at the district levels. But at the Anti-Corruption Court, we recently actually had a court users meeting.
Is this one of the issues that is discussed? The issues that, you know, there's a saying that justice must not only be done, but it must be seen to be done.
Yes.
So to the ordinary person, when they see a big counterfeiter, a big person engaging in criminal acts, getting away with it with a small fine, for them they don't think justice has been done. So how do we help the public to appreciate that justice is not only done, but is seen to be done?
Certainly, I want to say that a lot of justice has been done, and it has already been seen to be done, because very many cases of counterfeits have been handled in court, and many fake products have been destroyed. And of course, other culprits have been found guilty, and they have actually been sentenced. So I want to say that the public should really take note that we are doing our best, and I know we can even do much better. But
so are you asking us to relax, sit back, and leave your office? You have about 400 prosecutors countrywide. Our borders, our border points and internally, I don't know how many prosecutors we need. Is this a sufficient number to actually chase these thieves around, or do you actually need more? And are you calling the public, are you calling us also to participate and do something, and not leave it to you?
No, fighting counterfeits is not a one-man job. It's not a one-institution job. We need everyone in this country to support us, because these people are very sophisticated, and they use very many means to avoid the detection, to avoid being caught, and therefore we cannot do it alone. And 400 prosecutors cannot cover all the other crimes that we are prosecuting.
In addition to
counterfeits. So maybe I think that is a policy matter. But the more prosecutors we have, certainly the better. And the more hands and the more agencies that we have that are helping us to fight these counterfeits, the more likely we are going to get better results.
Better results. How important, in your view, is collaboration in fighting this vice of counterfeits? And do you, as ODPP, collaborate with the other agencies?
One of the key strategies that we have always used, and which has actually been brought up by the current DPP, is that we need to cooperate with other stakeholders when we are performing our duties. We do not do everything on our own, because remember, we have police which investigates. But before even they investigate, there must be someone who is going to report the case to them. And after that, our duty is enshrined in Article 120 of the Constitution,
yes,
where we are going to guide police in the investigations and then prosecute the matter before court. But then the final decision is going to be made by court. At times we need sophisticated hands and minds to deal with some of these items which have been counterfeited, because the human eye cannot just make the distinction between a counterfeit and a genuine product. So you may need sophisticated institutions
with the technical expertise. But tell me, Baine, doesn't
technology
doesn't the fact that government creates other agencies with prosecutorial powers, doesn't that cause a clash with the ODPP? For example, you are the people in charge of public prosecution, but we also have local authorities can also prosecute and enforce bylaws and so on. We also have the IGG can also prosecute. And doesn't this clash? Who is the boss of who in these prosecutions?
No, prosecution is also a creature of the law. We have the bulk of the prosecution work to do. We are the lead prosecutors of all these cases. And where we have these other agencies like URSB, URA, we have wildlife, we license prosecutors, but we still regulate and we supervise. So we know what is happening. But that's done in a collaboration style. Therefore, I wouldn't want to say that this causes any conflict. We are willing and happy to work with
that is in
partners.
Cases where you appoint a public prosecutor, that is clear. But in cases where an act of parliament gives power, let's say to IGG, to carry out an investigation and to prosecute. Supposing you as ODPP, you have a different view about that case. Can you, for example, withdraw it? A case filed by the IGG?
Now, IGG, as you are aware, Council, is only restricted in handling the issues of ombudsman and issues to deal with corruption by public officials. And therefore, I don't see any conflict there, because they handle their corruption matters.
So you give the IGG a call
we handle
and
our
say,
cases.
okay, I've seen your case. You don't publicly go and say, no, this charge wasn't proper. Because you are the, according to me, you are the apex.
We are very confident that they are doing a very good job. If you look at the statistics, they are doing a very good job in corruption matters. And I think
and so there is coordination.
We are actually happy that this is...
So as public, we should not be worried that ODPP will clash with URSB or whatever. You are moving in one direction.
We are very cooperative, and I think we will have any clash.
Now, in this, back to the workshop we had for the magistrates and prosecutors. At that workshop, there was presented a study which we did in the Elgon region. And that study showed not only that most farmers, most people did not know about counterfeits, but it also showed that there was 0 cases of counterfeiting reported in the Elgon region. None at the police, none in court. What does that show you as a chief prosecutor of one of the biggest courts in the country? Are people embracing the justice system enough to fight crime, or do we still need more and more education to make them utilize this public good?
Generally speaking, in most low-developed countries or least developed LDCs, We agree that there is a lot of training and sensitization that is required to ensure that every member of the public is able to be a whistleblower. Because when these counterfeiters are doing their business, they are not going to bring these counterfeits to you. They are going to look for the most vulnerable members of society who do not know the difference between a genuine and counterfeit product. Then, again, for us as a public institution, we only deal with matters which have been reported at police, and the police has brought them.
You don't go around with
a
mic on a radio. You see these guys who promote shows. They go announcing, come for Kenzo's show, come. The DPP's office does not go around town announcing, please report your case, don't allow to be, injured and so on. Are you considering such an engagement?
Cancer,
so you wake up people.
Cancer, I think that would be touting, under the legal profession. That one is
no,
not
but
allowed.
if it's for the public good, to tell people that don't sit back home and allow a crime to be committed.
Yes, we actually, when given an opportunity, you have always seen us in the media. We send out a lot of signals and messages alerting the public to be vigilant. Because vigilance of the public is the cornerstone of a good prosecution, especially when it comes to counterfeits. They will be the first people to find out, and they are the victims of these counterfeits.
Because if the cases are not reported, then
we have nothing to do.
You have nothing to investigate, nothing to prosecute, and you have no conviction.
Certainly.
So me, I am thinking that the ODPP maybe needs to up the gear a bit. For example, right now, you're going to be viewed by a wide audience, and people need to get the confidence to say, yes, let me report this case. Because I think the biggest problem we have is of people who do not know their rights and who do not report the cases.
Certainly, but now what I can say is that the work that we have is too much. Just today they mentioned the 8 billionth person has been born. The population
today
in the year, the population in the world is too much, and with a lot of people in the world, including Uganda. I don't know how many we are now, but we are around
what percentage
between 40 and 50 million.
What percentage of those 8 billion are criminals?
No, but now I'm looking at the
Do you have the statistics?
I'm looking at we don't have those statistics maybe. But, and even the 8 billion is a rough estimate, because it's very hard to know how many people have died and how many people have been born in just...
There is actual information.
Yeah, it's...
the number of people born is slightly more than the number of people that die every year.
Certainly, with better standards of living.
So, but you're saying that the ODPP is giving us assurance that, one, it is open for business, and it's encouraging us to report your case. You have a robust system that can process your cases.
We need all hands, especially civil society, like your organization. The work you are doing is very important, because training stakeholders and helping them to work together is very key in the fight against counterfeits.
Yeah, but we are also having limitations. For example, at the training we had less than 50 prosecutors, but you're saying you're 400, and I'm already seeing we've just scratched the surface. So like maybe you pay us to train you.
No,
tomorrow we train all the 400. Do you need more training?
You know, the resource envelope in the public sector
is big.
Is not
for
so
us, we
big.
Think government has too much money
there. Amorphous, and it has very many priorities. But training is actually very key. If you could afford to train more prosecutors, more investigators, more judicial officers, I think the impact will be seen in the rise of conviction rates, in the rise of better and
so that we now have prosecutors.
Better trials.
After this show, we are going to have prosecutors who will all sing the same song. Convict, jail, convict, jail. This issue of fines is causing, of course, in deserving cases as a lawyer, I know, but we we are dealing with stakeholders. For example, in agriculture, the outcry is unbelievable. People are losing whole crops that are planted. If you're a vegetarian, you're no longer sure if you're eating a vegetable or a chemical. You know, it is going out of hand. And we are saying it is time we get these culprits out of the system because they are causing more harm than good.
I think the easier way here would be to go for law reform. And civil society now plays a key role in determining which laws need to be changed. And of course, you have the ability to influence what happens in Parliament. And I think that's something you can
that we need to look at. Mr. Baino, we need to take a break and come back for the third segment. Back with the third and last segment of the League of the Genuine Conversations here. I am with the Chief Prosecutor of the Anti-Corruption Court here in Kampala, Mr. Baine. You have so far helped to break down for us the prosecution, investigation of cases. There is one element again that appeared at the training of the prosecutors and magistrates. There were complaints by the prosecutors about some complainants cutting deals with the accused. A case is reported, somebody is arrested with 50 cartons of counterfeit, and the owner of the brand, disregarding the whole court process, goes and negotiates and is paid some money, and the case collapses. And you cannot prosecute a case without the complainant. To what extent are we, the consumers, we the complainants, affecting the investigation and prosecution of cases?
Yes, that is well said. I would really state that it's not good for a complainant in such a case to lose interest in the matter, because this is, as you said in the beginning, a matter to deal with the public, Uganda versus the culprit. So
you're saying it's not the complainant's case?
It's not the complainant's case. And therefore the complainant is just a witness. But because it has pecuniary implications, most of the complainants may think they can settle it by getting
Let's
paid.
make this clear. I am free to report a case,
Yes.
a criminal case, to police, but I'm not free to remove it. I need your permission. I need your consent.
This is because...
Or your advice?
Yeah, this is because once you have reported a matter at police, it becomes a public concern. The resources to investigate that matter are the government's resources.
Mine. Okay.
And at the end of it all, the benefit is not yours. We are defending the public. It's in public interest that we prosecute.
Okay, somebody will argue that it becomes a public case, but I'm reporting the theft of my property. My intellectual property was stolen. So how do you reconcile this public interest and private interest? Because it is mine. And if I am happy, to forgive the counterfeiter, why are you crying louder than the bereaved?
Now, this is why it is so. One, the intellectual property rights are yours. And actually the government may not claim any rights of that nature. However, the one who is infringing your rights is also committing another crime
against the public.
Against the public, because we cannot guarantee that the standard of the goods which they are selling to the general public are safe and can meet the required standards. And they also have health hazards. So, in a way, he would have committed two crimes. One, infringement on the intellectual property rights of the individual patent holder, and also harming the public or putting them in harm's way.
I know, as a practicing lawyer, that there are provisions in the Penal Code Act that we rarely use. I have seen provisions to do with concealing of evidence, obstructing prosecution, and so on. Potentially, if somebody reports a case, government takes interest, spends money on it, is investigating it, and you frustrate that case, even you, the complainant, technically, you are liable for, you're committing an offense actually.
You can be prosecuted. And we have done it before. Many people have tried to pull out of cases which are very serious, murder cases, and they come and tell you that they have resolved it. How do you resolve a murder case when the deceased is already buried? Who would have resolved it?
But we saw one case. There was a murder case we saw. Then somebody went and met elders and they had a conversation, had a drink, and case sorted.
I don't think the prosecution was a party to that.
So, but you're saying that is, you cannot settle a case, a case without, the prosecution has to consent and say that the public interest is catered for. Is that the standard?
The public prosecution services are done in public interest on behalf of the public. And therefore, that's why you have the law saying that the DPP is the one who can withdraw or enter a nolle prosecution.
And what is the consideration for the DPP withdrawing or entering a nolle?
In most cases,
what do you consider? You do a referendum?
No, in most cases that one is done after evaluating the evidence, but not on grounds of reconciliation between the parties, especially where the public interest in the prosecution of the case is at stake.
You see, in the court, we hold the Bible or the Quran to swear. Yes. But that Bible inside there talks about forgiveness. Now, if the complainant decides to forgive, they are accused and is swearing by the Bible.
I'm also a Christian, and I know even the Constitution allows courts to promote reconciliation. And that one actually can be done. But that does not mean that the complainant in, for example, a counterfeit case should go and settle this matter with the culprit behind closed doors and then disappears and leave the prosecution without a witness. That would be very bad. An abuse of the court process.
So, don't you think we are scaring people to bring cases to court, to report cases to you? Because the moment you get in, or we should tell people, one, don't bring a flimsy case. Make sure that you bring a case that you can support, because there are some people also who want to malice others. You go and you say, let me put him there, whereas you're not serious. So the standard must be high that you must observe, because it's a serious process. That's what you're saying.
I'm just trying to say that the public out there should know that prosecution of criminal cases is not to enrich anyone. It is to protect the public. It is to punish the offender. And that's what
clean up society
is. So that now, in return, you, the person who has your intellectual property, you can exercise and develop your products without any interference. And ultimately, you will develop.
Is that the reason why, in most cases, the fine is actually paid to the state, not to the victim? Sometimes they pay to the victim.
That is, no, a fine is always paid to
the state.
But if the complainant feels so offended, they can still sue after getting the evidence. They can sue the culprit.
You mean a criminal
for
court?
Intellectual property rights in a civil matter.
A criminal court, of course I may know this, but I want the viewers to understand.
I understand.
A criminal court cannot give you damages, compensation, and say, Mr. Baine, you are so aggrieved, you are injured, 100 million there. They can't order compensation.
The compensation can be awarded, but damages and costs, as
we do in the civil,
they are provided for under civil litigation, and therefore it would require the complainant to take further measures after the person has been convicted.
Then you go to
the civil court,
a civil court,
and the person will willingly pay.
And you use the judgment in the criminal court.
Yes.
We are giving free education. This is for law school, but I guess it's part of your duty. What DPP has a duty to educate the public?
We have always done that.
You do that. Now, still on this issue of settling matters, there is what you call plea bargaining.
Yes.
First of all, what is plea bargaining?
Plea bargaining is where a criminal matter which is before court, is dealt with in a manner which is like alternative dispute resolution by allowing the accused person and their legal representative to participate in determining which sentence they will receive.
Is it like an out-of-court settlement?
It's before court, because it has to be endorsed by.
It is supervised by court.
It's supervised by the judicial officer. But now, after they have also agreed to plead guilty for, in most cases, a lenient sentence.
Oh, so plea bargaining is not about avoiding the charges. It is about negotiating or discussing the punishment.
Yeah, actually, that one, I'm a scholar in plea bargaining. We can talk about it the whole
for 2
day.
days.
Because you can plea bargain the facts, you can plea bargain the offenses in some cases. They can plead guilty to a minor and cognate offense. And
so that you
times
have
can
another
also
undropped.
plea bargain the sentence alone.
And what is the policy consideration behind plea bargaining? Are you trying to dilute the criminal justice system? Are you trying to promote harmony? What are you promoting?
Plea bargaining is a novel idea, and it has been used in other jurisdictions, especially the United States of America. And in Uganda, we are well aware we have a lot of backlog in the criminal justice system. Plea bargaining is a very good innovation which can reduce backlog in the criminal justice system
Backlog,
drastically.
but does it reduce the crime? The
does.
gun violence in the US
does.
is on the high, you know that. But they have plea bargaining.
They have managed. They don't have backlog like the one we have here.
No, I'm saying the violence in society. Gun violence. So it is other factors. We should not blame plea bargaining.
Of course, criminality is a very difficult and complex matter. There are many causes and reasons why the rate of crime is high in other states. But I don't think America has a very high criminal rate.
On this platform, we have identified several drivers, causes for counterfeiting, buying and selling. So we have depreciation, we have affordability, we have, as you can see them, as somebody who has also done prosecution, there is what we call mens rea, the state of mind of the accused. Which state of mind there, which of those informs the state of mind, which in Dankani informs the state of mind of this counterfeiter?
I wouldn't want to point to one particular driver. When it comes to forming a mind to commit a crime, these people are very sophisticated. They think about very many things. But counterfeiters generally are trying to benefit unfairly from items or products which have already been
they are stealing, basically.
Yes, invented, and they want to steal that. But they want, it's about pecuniary gain. They want to get money. So for me, I don't know what can prove that this is, but of course when they are doing that, they are simulating the original product. So in a way, differentiation, I think, is
because these are drivers for people who are consuming counterfeits from the public. These are not drivers for the criminals, and I think that's the point you're making. That the criminal has an intention of profit, of gain, whereas here in Dankani, it is what is pushing people into buying counterfeit. Some are claiming poverty. Is poverty an excuse for committing a crime?
Of course, the people who are buying these counterfeits are not committing crimes. Some of them don't know. Actually, for me, I would imagine that most of the people who are buying counterfeit products are not aware. They are not aware that they are counterfeit products. They just
but we say in law
they can serve the purpose.
We say in law that ignorance of the law, if you are doing something forbidden by the law, is no defense.
Yes, of course, for them, they are actually, it's not an offense to buy a counterfeit as long as they are not trading in it. For them, these are the last consumers, and the final consumers.
They don't have the intention
they
to
are
steal.
innocent. They are actually innocent victims.
But the moment they become aware, the moment you become aware that this is counterfeit, and you knowingly go and purchase it, and it is found with you, then you come into the bracket
now
of committing the crime.
Proving that knowledge is also a bit tricky.
If you are hearing,
because these are people who are consuming products for their own use.
not for trading, not for a gain.
They are harming themselves deliberately. And that's why I want to say the majority
do not know.
They don't know what they are consuming.
So what you, Mr. Baino, what you are underscoring here is that the consumer, we the consumers, are the biggest victims in all this. In
other jurisdictions, they have managed to fight counterfeits by educating and empowering the consumer. The Muntua Wansi. Once they know that if I'm going to buy a product, it should have these marks, it should have this, it should maybe smell like this, or taste like this, or look like this, then you have actually made it very difficult for the counterfeiters to get a
So
market.
you agree with us that the best and most effective thing to do actually is to educate the consumer, because an informed consumer is an empowered consumer.
Very much.
This, the office of the ODPP agrees with it.
We agree.
So we should be able to collaborate.
And that's why we are very much interested in what you are doing. You are helping us, because once the people who are bringing in counterfeits know that there is no market for their counterfeits, they will stop bringing them. I don't think you have seen super much cigarettes in the market a lot.
A counterfeit is an imitation of the original. Now, we have, especially here in Africa, a situation where people change themselves, change their color. So they cease to be an original, they become something else. They become a distortion. I want to learn from you as an expert in prosecution. Is it a crime for somebody to distort and change and bleach themselves? Can they be charged?
Counsel, I don't know whether you are born with white hair or gray hair.
If it is naturally occurring, this is part of my identity.
Now to prove that.
If tomorrow I paint myself yellow, I look different.
You have seen people going to watch football matches. They paint themselves with the colors of football clubs. World Cup is about to start.
That is temporary for 90 minutes.
Yes, now, so what if other people want
what
it for 1 month?
What is your comment about bleaching?
No, I think it's a choice. It's a choice, because those are personal issues.
And the law will not interfere with those
and
ones.
There's nothing like counterfeiting that arises out of that, in my opinion.
Because we have fake people also nowadays. You go, you produce somebody, they use is it artificial intelligence to create something different. Before we close, your experience with counterfeits. Maybe the office of ODPP, you're so lucky, you shop in special places, you eat special food, you have no exposure.
As an organization, we have a robust control of quality, that all the supplies we get are actually certified.
What about
quality?
You as an individual?
As an individual,
as a family man,
I try as much as possible to avoid buying cheap products, especially from what you can call the black market. I try to go to places where I can
get genuine.
Easily bring them here for you to sue them.
Ever been duped? Have you ever had an experience with counterfeit, you and your family? What product?
I can't recall offhand, but once in a while you buy some food and you really don't like the taste. You wonder, because I wouldn't confirm, because I don't have a laboratory in my home. But at times you believe that maybe this is an expired product, or else it doesn't meet international standards. But I think the choice you have there is just throw it away.
And you lose,
your money instead of trying to get your benefit by consuming it.
Mr. Baine Stephen, thank you so much for the wonderful exchange and experience that you have shared from the office of the ODPP. Mr. Baine Stephen is the chief prosecutor, chief state attorney.
Yes.
But you're still a prosecutor.
Certainly.
For us, we know that you are the person who is processing all those cases that come to the anti-corruption court, the cases of people who are charged with corruption-related offenses. We hope we shall see counterfeiting on the list of corruption cases, because it is also a moral legal issue that we have. But again, many, many thanks to the DPP for having sent that very many number of prosecutors to come for the training of counterfeits. We shall heed your call and see if we can have more trainings for the remainder of the prosecutors, and definitely we shall be working together with the office of the ODPP to ensure that we push back.
Thank you very much for hosting me.
Okay, so we need to stop here by thanking you all, as always, for being a good audience. If you've liked what we have discussed, if you've liked the episode, please don't be afraid to share, don't be afraid to subscribe, put that notification to always be reminded about the next program on the League of the Genuine, the only program on the planet. Don't be fake, buy and sell genuine always.